Hello, is this Nadine Sabulsky?
This is.
Nadine Sabulsky, the Naked Life Coach, author of Living the Naked Life, 10 Ways to Expose Your Unlimited Creation Abilities.
Yep, that's me.
Welcome to the Lou Show.
Thanks, Lou.
Nadine, you're the Naked Life Coach. What is a Naked Life Coach?
Well, basically, I help people figure out how to get what they want in their life. I teach a set of 10 principles that can be applied to pretty much any change somebody would like to make, and I do it naked, and they're naked.
And tell us about this book, Living the Naked Life, 10 Ways to Expose Your Unlimited Creation Abilities. I think everybody wants to maximize their abilities in life. Let's start there. Is it a given that most people have an unlimited potential that they're unaware of?
Yes, I would definitely say that.
And you just help people discover what's inside of them so they can better maximize their life.
If you want to make any kind of change whatsoever in your life to improve upon it in any way, please check out my book, Living the Naked Life, 10 Ways to Expose Your Unlimited Creation Abilities.
And where can my listeners pick up your book?
By the end of the year, you'll be able to find it on Amazon.com, hopefully in time for Christmas.
Okay. Nadine, you have a website. It's www.satorianation.com. And on your website, there's a proposal to basically redesign our society, our nation. You call it the Satoria Nation Project, Intelligent Societal Redesign. This is just fascinating. I mean, could you talk about this redesigned society that you propose is a possibility and within our grasp?
We're living in the 21st century here. We have all this 21st century knowledge. We know how to do so much, but we're not applying it as consistently as we could, mainly because even though we are in the 21st century and we have all this knowledge, a lot of our societal, our rules, if you will, and our systems that are built around those rules are based on ideas that are centuries, if not thousands of years old. We really have to look at society not as a single aspect, but as a bunch of interlocking systems.
Yes, you propose the idea that currently our needs and desires are not being met, and that we're not properly using our resources, that it's wasteful, that there is a way for us to have a paradigm shift in order to satisfy our needs and desires and most effectively use our resources. Now, so how can this be done?
It really does take a new way of thinking. So I do have a plan for bringing this into fruition. I do believe that it can be done extremely quickly. Like within 2 years, well, probably 2.5 to 3 years, we could have a completely redesigned society. However, that will require us to let go of some of our old ideas of how we're currently doing things.
Well, give me an example of one of these old ideas that we would need to abandon in order to help with a redesign of the planet.
Well, I think one of the basic ideas that is kind of underlying our society right now is the idea, which is kind of falsely taken from Darwin, the idea that only the fit survive. It's kind of an unspoken assumption that underlies everything in our current society. We've incorporated that thought process into our society at a very basic level. The idea that there must be competition in order to decide who is fit. And then what we've done with that idea of only the fit survive, we've almost taken it to the point where we're saying only the fit should survive. And then in our society, we've taken that idea and layered it with one more layer, and we've made the ability to make money the test of fitness for survival in our society. If you don't have the ability to make money, you're not fit to survive. You're homeless, you're starving, you're you're dying on the street. That's how we've defined fitness in our society.
And your project recommends abandoning the use of money.
Yes, that's part of it. And it's not necessary that we have to do that, but I think that in order to build these new systems, because it does require some building and some work to implement these, it would definitely help us to build the new systems if we just eliminated money. Eliminating money is a huge piece of it, and a lot of times when I'm talking to people about this, they say, well, we're going to have to trade somehow, or we're going to have to do this or that. Not necessarily. With today's technology, we have the capability of pretty much automating everything, and in a lot of cases we have, but the dichotomy right now is, well, if we automate too much, then we put people out of work, and then they're not making money, so they can't spend money. It really is a catch-22 in our society.
Yes.
That we can't move forward as long as we're living with the same monetary system or standard that we have. Right now, everybody has to work. We have this concept, everybody has to work, and in our current society, that is true, because we need everybody making money and spending money in order for everybody to keep making products, and it's just a huge cycle, and it's kind of a cycle without purpose. The only purpose is to produce goods to be sold so they can be consumed, and keep producing more goods, and that is very wasteful as well.
I hear you. I hear you. The way it returns back to the worker in order to justify receiving basic needs is kind of debilitating. And right now in society, it's stalled. And when it stalls, then the cycle kind of runs into itself and grounds down.
It's not only the debilitation of against the worker, it's the whole system itself is extremely wasteful, because we have to keep producing goods to sell in order to keep money coming in, we have things like planned obsolescence.
Let me ask you directly, how do we satisfy our needs for specifically food, clothing, and shelter?
The way that we do things right now with food is ridiculous. I would like to decentralize food production and re-centralize it in each community, and we have the technology to do that now. We know how to build skyscraper farms. We understand hydroponics and aeroponics and aquaponics and all these different, as well as soil farming. So if we set up a skyscraper farming complex in each community, so we do have the know-how to produce more than enough food. There's never been a scarcity of food in this country, and there doesn't have to be in other countries, especially with something like this, because it's indoor. We can control the climate. We can grow foods from all different areas. We don't have to send 1,000 miles away to get bananas, for example. We would be able to grow those in our own town. So that eliminates a lot of waste in transportation, and it also eliminates waste in packaging, because how I visualize it is, okay, we've got a skyscraper and we're growing food on all these different levels. We can automate the planting and harvesting of the foods. We can automate. In fact, a lot of the processing that is done now with food is already automated. So we can automate the processing of the food, and I see at the ground level having a distribution facility, kind of like a grocery store, but we can automate that as well. And I kind of envision, rather than having the food packaged for like individual servings or family-sized servings, that everything would be stored in bulk, and we would use recyclable containers. So you would come to the store and put in your order of what you want, and robots would package it up in these recyclable containers. And then when you came back to the store, you'd bring the containers that you had emptied back, and they'd go into the store and get cleaned out by the robots and put back in the, and reused. So this would eliminate a ton of waste that is currently associated around food as far as packaging goes as well.
Yeah, robots are becoming quite sophisticated.
Yes. Well, they already have this technology. Like in Japan, they have automated convenience stores. Farming has been slightly automated, but if you're bringing it into a building, then it would be far easier to fully automate it.
Could you really quickly address clothing and shelter?
Sure. Clothing, we definitely can automate the production of clothing. We could then produce clothing on demand and specifically tailored to fit the individual who is getting it. again, with our food complex, we can grow a lot of the things that we would need to produce clothing. And shelter, well, right now we have a surplus of housing. There's something over 18 million homes that are vacant. Not only that, but if we eliminated money, think of all the businesses that would no longer have to take place and the huge buildings that they occupy. Banks, insurance companies, tax collection agencies, accountancies, marketing firms. I mean, think about it. If we got rid of money, we wouldn't have to market things anymore, right? Because we wouldn't need people to spend money to buy them anymore. So there's a huge surplus of already standing buildings that could be repurposed to provide housing for our shorter term needs, like the next generation or two.
Energy.
Energy is a huge thing. I have a couple energy experts on my team as well. We don't need to be in a grid. Tesla, over 100 years ago, wanted to come out with a very simple power generator that he developed that you basically just plug into the ground. As far as vehicles go, because we use a lot of our energy to power our vehicles, again, it's already been developed, basically a vehicle that is powered on water, that converts the water to hydrogen and oxygen in the vehicle. The reason we're not adopting these technologies right now, again, is money, because it puts the existing businesses out of business. Mm-hmm. Or, it makes too great of a change in our existing system, and it would put a lot of people out of work if you didn't have to, that's the current conception of it, is that it's just too big of a change and it would put too many people out of work. What I'm saying with my idea is, why do we have to have everybody working anyway? In fact, we can build something to where nobody has to work.
Well, I think people like to work because it gives them purpose.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that people can't work if they want to in this new society. They can do whatever they want. I mean, if you love to work and do something, then do it. But the idea is that you don't have to do it.
Then what happens to the spirit of a human being who seeks purpose?
Again, if you want to work and do something, that would be completely allowable. However, your right to life would not be dependent on you having to work.
I think human beings have a matter of ego, that individually they want to make a difference.
I think you're right, and that is definitely something that you would still be able to exercise that in the new system. Mm-hmm. The only difference would be, well, you're not going to starve if you don't. There will definitely always be a human drive to creativity, toward discovery. I think this system would actually enable that better because, well, one of the things that designing a new system for would be education. Right now, you have to have a lot of money if you want to keep on getting education. Mm-hmm. I mean, aside from going on watching how-to videos on YouTube, which is a great resource, I would like to make a new education system that is freely available to all. There's a whole lot of stuff that we could do to better education.
I'm talking about motivation of a person, motivation of a tribe, motivation of a people, motivation of a company. If you made education freely available, then yes, I think a person's own curiosity would drive them to learn whatever they could. If education was freely available, I bet that there would be some people who would spend their entire life just studying and learning, and I can understand that. But I see a problem with this utopian society that you've designed and that you propose. I see a problem with it, and I see the problem as political. I put to you that there are so many powerful entities that are already in place to act as a barrier to improved systems. And I'll cite energy, for example. Yes, I've heard of hydroelectric power, and if we could harness that and portabilize it, then that would enable a person to get around and not pollute the planet and just use a simple resource, which is plentiful, as water, as fuel. But the barrier in front of that are, of course, the oil companies. Now, Okay. Have you considered how to sell this utopian society?
Yes, absolutely. That's where the stages of implementation come in. So let me run through those real quick, and I'll explain to you how I visualize this happening. First off, the first stage is conceptual design, which is where we're at right now, and then also actual design, which is designing the blueprints or the technical specifications of such new systems. What's required, what materials and labor resources are required to build them is basically what that design phase will answer. So if we design the farming complex, for example, from that design we'll know how much building materials we need, we'll know how many people it will take to build it and what specialties and all that, okay? From those designs, we will then know how many people are necessary to build them, okay? Once we know that, we're going to recruit the people necessary to building and also recruit the people necessary to maintain the current necessary systems during the building phase, to maintain food production and production of energy and medical care and stuff like that. Those things are absolutely necessary. The building phase will last 2 years or less. I know building a factory or something like that might take 6 months. Building a new educational system might take 2 years or so.
Nadine, I imagine you're depending upon people to come forward because there are a lot of forward-thinking people in the world today who would be willing to dedicate their lives to creating these prototype systems. What percentage in society of people do you think there are who would be willing to come forward? Just your estimate, how many people would be willing to engage in this futuristic plan?
I'm going for a good 90%, and that's because I've laid the groundwork. We're going to knock on everybody's door and say, look, we have this idea. We already have the labor who's going to build it. I want your support. And you know what? In order to support me, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is stop using money and, in fact, maybe even quit your job. How does that sound? We're going to build this and you can live freely for the rest of your life. You can retire today. That's all you got to do. Withdraw your support from the current systems.
That's a great idea. Wow. You know, if I could contribute to a system and help create something that can help a lot of people in the long run and then get to live there too, you know, for a while and take advantage of this, I'd do it.
I'm pretty sure that 90 to 100% would. So that's how it's gonna come about. So the current large entities that you mentioned, well, if we withdraw our support from them, then what power do they have? They don't.
You can't say 100% because currently we're involved in a battle in this nation all around the world that is identifying the 1% for having a different set of desires that are at the expense of the 99%. And as a matter of fact, this Satoria Nation project, as you call it, was born out of Occupy. So could you please explain the connection with Occupy?
Sure. Again, the 1% that we have right now, all they've done is really managed to capitalize, to use the right term, on our current system. We're all in this together. We all have lived and worked under these same systems. Okay, the 1% have managed to climb to the top. That's it. They had the necessary resources or knowledge or capability or desire and drive to get there. Who says we have to keep having this system? It's something we made up, and we can change our minds.
Well, that's true. As a matter of fact, before before money and credit was so prevalent in society, people did barter their goods and their labors.
When we came up with the idea of money, it was a good thing. Increased efficiency. So if somebody wanted to trade with somebody else, then they did not have to physically move goods as far. They could just exchange tokens.
Right, money was a medium of exchange, and now I think you're proposing something different as a medium of exchange. I guess actual labor and actual goods. And
I'm actually proposing that we eliminate the idea that we need to exchange. Because if we put, as a society, as a group, if we built these systems that were automated, then nobody would have to work. In other words, there would not be any labor that would be needed by anybody else. There's no exchange that is necessary. There's only exchange that is desired.
Okay, I'll play devil's advocate here with you. How do we pay the bus driver to get us to the airport? How do we pay the pilot to fly us over to the jungles in deep, darkest Africa so we can go on a safari? How do we pay the waiter that serves us lunch? That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, first off, those are three separate questions. We have the capability of automating our transportation system.
Let's assume that someday a lot of these things will become automated. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess some people will need to work in order to maintain that automation.
If we have robots that can build cars, we can build robots that can fix cars.
So I take it that you need a lot of robotic experts on your team.
I definitely need some robotics experts. I need a lot of different experts from every area.
Well, with what you're proposing and how we create goods and provide services, I guess what you're also saying here is that waste would be reduced, almost eliminated, and so there will be less of a need for recycling and waste.
Definitely.
All right. All of these things in this system that you're proposing threatens the powers that be. That's what I see. You are proposing sort of a utopian Star Trek world in a way. And you know what? I agree. I wish that we had the kind of world that you're talking about. It would be
we can build it.
We can build it. We can build it. I just say that there are a lot of political barriers to building it, mainly by those people who already have power right now, and they're not willing to give it up, regardless of who you reach. I think there will be a conflict of interest in those people who are power hungry, and now that they've got the power, they don't want to give it up. So,
well, let me ask you this: how do they enforce their power?
If you're proposing taking away money so that things could get done outside of their control, I think that's probably the way. But politically, there's going to be a great difficulty trying to get, say, for example, legislation through our current form of government in order to enable.
Oh no, I'm not even. Why try to do that? You don't try to build a new system by using the existing system.
Then how do you build a new system without using the current system? How do we build something when we don't even have the tools yet, if that's what you're suggesting?
Well, like I said, the first step is getting the design team together. The second step is recruiting the necessary labor to build it and the necessary labor to maintain the existing systems. And then the final step, well, not the final step, but the final step before we build is to get the stated cooperation of at least a critical majority who are just going to withdraw their support from the current system. Stop using money. That's it.
I agree with how this can be done, but I also see, because I've turned into a skeptic here in my old age, well, only because I've been studying, and presenting things on politics for the last couple of years, is that people in power come up with the flimsiest of reasons to resist change. And they create reasons to resist change. And they're using our current system in order to create these differences that enable them to stay in power. So I see the politics as being probably the last step to change. To those who are conservative and want to stay to the current system, they would ask questions such as, well, if you give everybody what they need and want, then there would be no desire for them to compete. But like you're saying, is that you're questioning these premises at the core.
Yeah, why do we have to compete? Why can't we cooperate? Does competition really breed better? I think cooperation is the next evolutionary leap that we as a species need to make.
I agree, and I agree with you that social Darwinism is in place, and it's manifested through money. That a lot of people believe in the idea that only the fit should or deserve to survive. Now, there was a lawmaker, I think in Alabama last year or the year before, and he was against food stamps or something. And his example was, do you know what happens when you feed an animal? And he said, what happens when you feed an animal is that they breed. So here, discuss this idea. What do you do? What do you do about overpopulation?
Well, actually, if you've ever seen any of Hans Rosling's on the TED Talks, there's a guy named Hans Rosling, or Rosling, and he talks about this perceptual disparity that prosperity, that there's an us and a them. He talks about the disparity of thought, that there's an us and a them thinking about third world countries, and he shows the actual data progression from like the 1950s through today. And what he's showing in his data that as incomes rise and as infant mortality decreases and the industrialization of the world has actually reduced the birth rate. So as countries or as families become more prosperous, they tend to have less children. Now, the thing about our current welfare system is that the welfare actually, if you have one child, it barely gives you enough to live on, if that. And in Arizona, I think the most cash assistance you can get is $300 a month, which is not enough to live on. It's not enough to even rent a one-bedroom hovel, okay? Let alone keep your power turned on and live in a modern. And it's enough if you want to pitch a tent somewhere, but it kind of provides a reverse incentive to have more children. Now,
I also read in this file that you've written about the Satoria Nation. You also take sort of a libertarian view of crime and criminal justice. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think that we need to completely redesign a legal system as well. Right now we have over 1 million laws in the federal code alone. There's 2 million in the IRS code. Well, those would all go away if they got rid of money. I mean, 1 million laws, can the average person be expected to remember all that or even know what they are? I mean, that's why we have lawyers. We don't need lawyers if we just simplified our legal code. And
anything between two consenting adults would be allowable.
Yes. Right now we have a lot of laws that try to legislate safety, for example. Let's just talk about seatbelts and helmets. Well, in Arizona you don't have to wear a helmet, so we get a lot of people that come here that want to ride their bikes with no helmets.
Right.
That's an adult choice. I don't think that the government should be in place to play mommy and daddy to us or to try to make sure that we're safe. I think that that's up to us as individuals to take care of our own safety. Now, we do need some mechanism in place to prevent us from being harmed by another person without our consent. We have the current knowledge and ability to treat people who might want to harm others.
I think you proposed a manner in which two consenting adults can enter into any activity in a consensual manner, and that they would be liable eventually if anything were to happen to any one of them. It's almost a gladiator-like.
Yes. I think as the ultimate thing, if there are people out there who want to harm others and don't want to be cured of that impulse, that we should have some kind of system in place where they can act out those impulses against others of their same ilk.
Sort of like Fight Club.
Kind of like Fight Club, but I'm saying that there should not be any limit to the level that each person wants to go to.
And it's funny that you mentioned the helmet law, that you believe the helmet law is restrictive, that people have a right to, if they want to go ahead and ride a motorcycle without a helmet, that if that's their choice, then that's their choice. It's funny that you'd mention that, because years ago, Al Franken was on the campaign trail with Ronald Reagan. And in the morning at a press conference, Ronald Reagan proposed stricter laws against marijuana. In the afternoon, Ronald Reagan, they all get on the bus, they'd go someplace else, and Ronald Reagan would speak to a different group, and he would advocate against restrictions such as the helmet law. Just like what you said, is that if someone wants to ride a motorcycle without a helmet, they should have the right to do that. And so Al Franken got kicked off the tour by saying, why do you in the afternoon do you respect the liberty of a person making a choice not to wear a helmet, yet you don't respect the liberty of a person who might want to smoke marijuana as they wish?
Right.
So tell me, I imagine that the right to smoke marijuana would also be included in this new Satoria nation that you're proposing. That if someone wants to smoke marijuana, or for example snort cocaine or do anything that they want, that they have the right to do so.
Yes, absolutely. And in societies where things like that are freely available, such as the Netherlands, there is much less crime. So we in America, we say, well, drugs produce crime, but really it's the black market, because drugs are illegal, that produces crime.
Right, and if you took away the criminality, that would eliminate the need to prosecute, and that would take away the incentive to provide and distribute these items in an illegal atmosphere, and so people would get this stuff, and they'd be able to do whatever they want. So it's quite libertarian, is what you're proposing, and even though I kind of scoff at such libertarianism, because I realize that there are lots of barriers in the way of creating such a society. And after speaking with you, I realize that the biggest barrier to this is the idea of competition versus cooperation. I agree with you that somehow ingrained in us is the idea of Darwin's that only the fittest survive or deserve to survive, and I think that's how we color almost everything that we do. We don't get a chance. We don't do anything without the implied right to do so, because it is how we define our survival and our right to survive.
Right.
Competition versus cooperation. So, how can people contact you if they're interested in joining your design team?
There is a form on the Satoria Nation site, and that's, let me spell it out. It's SATORIA Nation.com, and there's a link there to click to volunteer. SatoriaNation.com. Okay, and I understand that you're also casting people for a documentary, is that right? Yes, I'm working on putting together a video describing this entire new system in the very near future.
And who are you interested in applying to appear in this video?
Well, I'm interested in people who know of existing technologies that could be integrated. It'd be great to have people on the video that work with such technologies or have witnessed them. We're going to be working on getting video of all these different things. A lot of these things are already, in fact, the majority of what I want to implement already exists here and there in isolated little clumps. So really what I'm saying is, hey, people, I don't want to build something completely new. All this stuff exists already. I just want to coordinate it so it works together for all of us, for all of our benefit.
Well, you could be the next Steve Jobs.
I could be.
Wow.
But I'm not interested in gaining a fortune. I'm interested in changing the world. And maybe that's what he set out to do. I don't know.
Well, I'd like to ask you something, Nadine Sabulsky, the Naked Life coach, author of Living the Naked Life, 10 Ways to Express Your Unlimited Creative Abilities, and now the coordinator and designer of the Satoria Nation.com.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go from helping out the individual to coming up with a design and going forward to change the world?
Actually, I had this idea before I started doing Naked Life coaching. I've been talking about this idea for years among my friends, hammering out all the objections and figuring out better ways to do it. So I actually got into helping people more as a support for what I really want to do, which is change the world.
Wow, I'd love to change the world.
Let's do it. We can do it together.
Nadine Sabulsky, the Naked Life coach, author of Living the Naked Life, 10 Ways to Expose Your Unlimited Creative Abilities, and originator of the Satoria Nation.com. I want to thank you for appearing today on The Lou Show.
Thank you, Lou. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I invite all of you who are listening to this to join us. Let's do it. We can build it together.
I want to thank Nadine Sabulsky of the Satoria Nation for appearing today on The Lou Show.